So this is IRONDESIGNER here, and sometimes part of our job is we've got to buy machinery, equipment. Today I need to get myself a van for work, and so I'm gonna do a Google search, see if I can find a van. See what kind of vans they got. Out here in our offices in Riverside County, California. Let's see, you got this one. You got several here that have vans. Here's Spectrum Motors. Let's check them out. Let's check out their inventory. No, this is not really a lot of vans. This is like cars and small vans. Not really what we are looking for. And we're not affiliated with any of these companies, by the way. Let's go back, check out the list. Is there anything further down that we could look at? We're not affiliated with any of these companies here. Let's see. Oh, there's a van. Let's check that out. See what's on their website. Let's see. You got a bunch of cars. Oh, there's some vans. There's trucks, vans. Oh, that's interesting. Let's take a look at it this way. There we go. A nice list. So what we're going to do is we're going to web scrape this list, and then we're going to see if we can analyze it a little bit quicker. So I'm going to copy that. But the issue is that we can either look at it by make of van or car and say we want a Ford, but there's no way to like bring out the van. See, you got trucks, and then they got like a van, and there's a truck, and there's no way to toggle that within model. So even if we click model, we get some vans in a group. But what we want to do is we just want to only get just the vans. So you got a van. You got a van, and then you've got some other vans and some Super Duty trucks. We'll try to analyze this by scraping. Now, earlier we noticed that table that we were going to scrape was a ASPX formatted table. So it's coming out of ASP, could be coming out of Microsoft Access database. We don't really know, but it's in the ASP format. And the issue is that if we just try to paste it, we get this, and it's not usable because it's like all in one cell. So we can't really go directly into Excel to even analyze this. We need to do an intermittent step. So I'm going to try going into TextPad, and I'm going to paste it there. And you can see it's basically a tab delimited table. So I'm going to copy it again from here, because now all the HTML and web formatting and all the XML formatting from the previous .aspx format is gone. So now I can go into Excel and I can paste it into Excel. So now everything is, at least now it's in its own cell. So Excel understood that even though it's tab delimited, I want to work with it in this format right here. So we'll come back in the next screen and we'll talk about coding and trying to sort this out and pulling out just the vans that we were looking for using Visual Basic Code. And we'll be right back. So then what we did is we just saved that as a text file. And it's just opening up in Notepad. And it's just the output from their website. It has 50 records in there. And now it's just a tab separated text file. So we're going to go in and we're going to analyze this record by record, and we're going to pull out only the information that we're looking for. We'll be right back. Okay, so earlier on in the video we talked about creating software code, and that's what you're seeing on the screen right now, to analyze the data that we copied from the web. We scraped it from the web. We did it manually in this case, and we demonstrated that it was a .aspx file, and when we tried to directly copy it to Microsoft Excel, it wouldn't work, so we had to paste it into TextPad, and then we removed it from TextPad and put it into Excel, and then it worked out. We had all the cells and all the data in the proper locations, and we found that when we scraped that data, we had about 56 records in that data, automobile data, from that website that we found earlier. So we're going to now go into the software code. Okay, so here in this software program, it's written in Visual Studio Console for Visual Basic. So what we have at the top is just some variables and their definitions that we're going to be using later on in the code. Here at this point, I have a bit of a marquee. So when the software is running, it just basically tells you what the title is and what it's supposed to do, and a little bit of instructions right here of what the user is supposed to do. It has a nicely built-in feature that if you don't type in the file name, it'll catch that error and just assign you just a default text file, or you could type in your own. Then it basically tells you that it's beginning to run, and it has another marquee with a few little selection points in here. Now this is very customized because it's very application specific, and the goal of this program is at the very end it's going to actually select the type of van that you should buy, and it's going to actually go through the data. So well that it's going to select the best price and the best mileage of the van. So here's some selection that you can go through. I'm going with like a 40 Econoline, maybe a 150, or just the word van. Or you can choose your own definition, and the code will catch everything. It's got a little bit of error handling in here. And at the very end, if you really just keep pressing enter, 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 it's going to kind of fill in the blanks for you and just go with that data. So it's just informing you of what it's doing step by step. I have a few color changes on the text, and it's going to begin with this file. So originally you put in the file that you copied and saved, and it's basically going to convert that file into this other file called fntemp. I put fn meaning file name, so that's why up here it says fn file name. You get back down to this point where we left off, and it's got several functions in there. And the very first pass on the data is that it's going to remove all the commas, because in some cases, since this is a comma delimited file name, but the problem is that the original file had commas for the mileage and commas for the dollar amount. So we need to erase all the commas in the whole file, and then we can get rid of the tabs and convert the tab delimited back into comma delimited, so that now everything is just either numerical or a string. So that's what these two functions are doing. This function here, at first, this function is going to get rid of the commas, and then we have to go back into the file, reopen it, and we're saving it as some new file. So it's telling you here, removed all the commas, continue by pressing the key. It's going to reopen the file, and see here, if you have ASCII character string number 9, which is the ASCII definition of a tab, it's going to replace the tab with a comma. And then we're going to come back and talk about what happens in the next pass. Okay, so at this point in the code, now we get rid of the tabs and put back commas in all the places where we need it to be. So we now have a fully functioning CSV file at this point. And here in the next function, the next section of the code, what the goal is here is basically to update the record counter. So we want to double check that we still have the same number of records that we started with. And so that's all that this does here, is it basically reviews the file one more time, make sure that the record counter is the same as before. So we make sure we've got good integrity, because we converted from a text file. We went through two passes. We eliminated the commas, then we eliminated the tabs, we replaced the commas, converted it back into a CSV file. So with all this, file writing and rewriting and opening and closing, we just want to make sure that our record count has stayed the same. So what this does, it verifies that the record count is still good integrity. And now we go into the next sub function here. What we're going to do at this point is, when we go in and do a selection statement based on our previous criteria, what we want to do is we want to extract that data two different ways. We're going to extract a subset of the CSV file in its own record, and a copy duplicate of that as a text file in its own record, so we can open up both copies of that after we write them to the files. And we're just going to compare the record number in both of those, just to make sure that we've still got correct number of records in those files. And we're going to verify that count compared from the software comparison counter to the actual Microsoft Excel number of records and rows, and also in the, we're going to use Notepad++ to open up the text file, and it's already got line number count, so we can verify that. So we want to make sure there's good integrity with all our files, and that completes our pass number 4 through the data. Then down here in this section, what we do here is we're just going to use one of the output files. In this case, we're going to use the text file. So at this point, we've got a reduced number of records compared to the original input record. And we're going to go ahead and start deciphering in how we want to really exclude the vehicle that we're really looking for. So we're going to say that no matter what the mileage is of the van today, that the engine life of the van can go about 165,000 miles before we feel that it's, we have to sell it or it's got, major issues. So we're opening up the text file, and we'll get into this portion of the subroutine. So here we're doing a do loop till the end of the file. And what we're going to do as we're looking through this record, since it's still a string, we're going to look for the word gas, because we noticed that in the attributes in the file, it mentions the type of fuel that the engine takes. So we know it's a gas engine. So we're going to use gas as kind of a trigger in as we're searching our string. And we're going to be looking at the mileage of the vehicle, and this is all based on how the original author, the original owner of the table, the car dealership, how they set up their attributes, their columns, and their rows. I'm not making up any of this. This is just basically doing web scraping and going in and dissecting the string the way the original author created those tables in his Microsoft Access database or his Microsoft SQL server. He created the tables. I'm just going in and dissecting the attributes record by record. And I'll show you how all this makes sense once I run the executable file. So first of all, I'm just going to keep track of the item number. This way it's another verification on the number of records. The string length, the substring, and the substring is just like I said, I'm only interested in the mileage of the van and the price of the van. And I'm going to do a calculation where I subtract the actual mileage from the max mileage, the 165,000, and that's going to tell me how much life I still have available in the engine. And then I have a couple of for loops in here that are basically looking at the sub selection, and since I notice there's a $sign in the price of the van, I'm going to use that $sign as a trigger to look to the right of the $sign and get the numerical value of the price, and look to the left of the $sign and get the numerical value of the actual mileage. So I'm going to split that off from the string, from the substring. And again, what I'm doing is I'm just working with what I was given, so I'm not making any of this up. All I'm doing is having this program basically slice and dice through each string record. And even though I manipulate at the top, but I didn't change the order of any of the data in the string record, so it all still matches back to what's on the dealership website. And here it's just showing me a little title of the miles, the remaining life, and then now I'm going to determine how to calculate the best selection from the vans, what I'm calling the amortized per mile, which is going to be the dollar value that I stripped out divided by the mileage value, which is the difference between the engine life and the actual miles on the engine. I'm going to use this right here, cost per mile, which is I'm dividing the price of the van by how much life is still left in the engine, and it's going to give me the values in these little locations here that I'm going to look at. And then I'm going to, at the very end, this little section right here is going to comb through those remaining records and tell me which van is the best choice selection that I should purchase. And sometimes it's very surprising, and the code actually is giving you the correct answer. At the very end, I'm just going to display the truncated files. I'm going to run a bat file because in Windows 10 you cannot just do a shell command directly from inside an executable. You have to run a bat, which is running start inside PowerShell. So I'll show you the bat file in a minute, the contents of the bat file, but it's really these two strings right here. It just says start notepad++ vehicle tool.txt and start excel.exe vehicle tool.csv. And at the end here, when you press the last return value in here, the program ends. So in the next section, I'll walk you through the actual program running. So what I have here on the screen is I compiled that file that I walked you through previously, and here's the marquee, and here are the instructions that I told you about. And now the rest, you're just going to see the text on the screen basically explaining to you where it is in the program, and it's going to ultimately end up with selecting the van that it recommends we should purchase, and I'll show you why it's the best choice. So here you have the reading of the file. It's showing you that it's reading that default file. Another marquee with those selections that you saw back in the code. It's asking here to a search phrase, or you could just press enter. I'm just going to press enter. And here it's saying that the search phrase is going to be Econoline, so it's going to be like a number one selection. The length of that string is 9 characters long. It's going to search for Econoline in the file that we selected, the text file in this case. We could have gone with CSV, but I chose TXT in this case. So there's end of pass 1. It read in 56 records from the original file from the dealership's website, and it's removing all the commas as I explained previously. It's going into pass number 2, which is converting from tab to commas as I explained previously. Here it's proving to me through a counter that it walked through all 56 records, and it ended pass 3 with 56 records counted. So it's gone through 2 file modifications, and it's still the correct number of records in its database. Now, you saw it delayed a little bit because it had to go through and crunch down from 56 records down to 17 based on the keyword I entered, Econoline. And now it's beginning that analysis portion, which is a loop. So it's going to loop through all 17 files, and it's starting with the 2013 Ford Econoline, Super Duty, Ambulance, which I'm not really interested in that. But the Ambulance has a remaining life of 55,000 miles, and here's the amortized rate per mile, which is for the rest of the life of this van, the $19,995 for 55,000 miles is going to cost me 36 cents per mile. So that's what I'm deducting, amortizing out of the price of the van. I know other things go into it, but for simplicity's sake. Here is the next record. It's got a 2008 Ford Econoline E450 shuttle bus. I'm not really interested in that, but for educational purposes, it's like the same price, but the remaining life of this van is 82,000 miles, so the price of that amortized per mile vehicle is 24 cents per mile. And you could just keep going through this thing. We know that there are 17 records to look at, and like for example here we're like on record 12. So this is record 12 of 2002 Ford Econoline E350. This right here is record 13, and it's at 14 cents per mile. And right now it's telling us that the best choice, the BC, is record number 6. Okay, see how the record number 6 hasn't changed, because that had the lowest amortization per mile cost. So it's telling us the BC, the best choice, even in record 13, it's saying way back up there, it had the best choice. Okay, and LC is the last choice. Okay, so here we go. Oh, so now it changed, and it's now saying that record 13, the one we just looked at, is the best choice, because you can compare the 0.1481 to 0.1489. So it updated its best choice from 6 to 13. And now it updated it again. It found a cheaper van at only 10 cents per mile. So now it updated its best choice is now number 14. This is just random depending on how the data was structured. So now we're at record 16. It's telling you it's red record 16. And now it updated it again. It says that this is now 14.81 per mile. It's looking at, so it's still going back. This is record 16, and it's not any better than record 15. So record 16 is not as good as record 15. So it's still telling us that the best choice is number 15, the previous answer. And here we're on record 17, which is the last record. And you see 12 cents per mile is still not as good as 10 cents per mile. So it's still going to stay on record 15. And that's where the program ends. It's going to now open up the files that we built before, the CSV and the TXT. And it's opening it up here in Notepad, which is right here. You have 17 records that it selected through, and then you have it also using PowerShell. It opened it up, 17 records in Microsoft Excel. So that's 2 ways to view your data and the results of the data. I hope you enjoyed this video, and this is Iron Designer saying that we're going to move on and look for more vehicles. Thank you very much.